Hey, party people. Today I want to talk about designing at different price points. Of course, everyone would love to design clothes with a limitless budget, but that's not reality for anybody. So let's talk about the real world, where we have to think about making things within a specific price point. It's an essential part of business and part of your brand story. Also, fashion empires are built by selling at every income level and price point. Look at Ralph Lauren. He's got Ralph Lauren Collection, Ralph Lauren Purple Label, Polo Ralph Lauren, Ralph by Ralph Lauren, Lauren Ralph Lauren, Double R Ralph Lauren, and I'm pretty sure I didn't make any of those up. I would like to state at this point that getting the lowest costing product should not always be the goal. You should always consider fair labor laws, sustainable materials and processes, quality of materials and production, streamlined, efficient production. These all need to be taken into consideration, but we are going to focus on price in this video. Let's quickly go over the industry price categories first. Well, let's go lowest to highest. First up, discount/off price. These are samples, closeouts, discontinued items, past season items, and damaged goods. And these retailers are TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Burlington Coat Factory, Ross, and Sample Sales. And no one designs for these companies, they just sell things, but it is worth mentioning in the video context of where you know these retailers, where they sit in the whole industry. Next up is budget or mass market. These are knockoffs of designer pieces, designer-driven trends done cheap. Used to be called juniors. A lot of people still call them juniors. These are trendy and disposable things. Brands like H&M, Target, Old Navy, Forever 21, JCPenney, Kohl's. And then next up is moderate. And in moderate, most expensive pieces will be like $300 to $500 for like a winter coat, okay, or an embellished dress. And moderate is a combination of more quality basics and a few trendier things. Think of Reformation, Levi's, ASOS, Macy's, Zara, The Gap. Next up is contemporary and better. Now, contemporary and better are at about the same price bracket. Contemporary is seen as more of a trend-driven, youthful look, and better is more for the more mature customer, more classics-driven, often for a more mature body type. And in these two categories, the most expensive pieces will be $800 to $1,000. And in the contemporary bracket, we're talking about All Saints, BCBG, Ganni, Carvin. Side note, J. Crew was having problems with this, where they were in the moderate bracket, and then people like Michelle Obama, more celebrities were wearing J. Crew, so they were trying to cash in on that, and they started making really expensive stuff, and a lot of people were not having it. And, you know, their bridal line is okay being at a more contemporary price bracket, but it's bridal. People will spend a little bit more, but people don't go to J. Crew for $500, $600 cardigans, and so they lost out for a while. In the better category, we have designers like Anne Klein, classics, higher quality, that kind of thing. Next up is bridge. And bridge is literally the quote-unquote bridge between better and designer. And these are often called diffusion lines. These are DKNY by Donna Karan, Emporio Armani, Marc by Marc Jacobs, those lines. A lot of people don't know about bridge anymore because bridge is not as popular as it used to be. Back in the 90s, every designer had a bridge line. But, you know, fashion has always mirrored the economy at large. With the shrinking middle class, contemporary, better, and bridge categories have gotten smaller and smaller. Recently, there is some talk of contemporary making a comeback, which is good news. Now, designer price point, you know, ready to wear, pret-a-porter, it's about, you know, $1,000, $1,000 per item and up in general, other than small items like tank tops. You know, Calvin Klein, Vera Wang, Marc Jacobs. And luxury. People always want to know what a luxury brand is, and this is a more recent term. And This is a word typically used for really big global brands that many people have heard of, like household names. And, like Gucci is a designer price point, but they call themselves luxury. They're really big. Who hasn't heard of Gucci, right? Like, my grandma's heard of Gucci. Generally speaking, luxury brands are commonly known as giant brands who have branched out into every accessories category, or they're the ones that are so expensive that they're practically a step below haute couture. Now, haute couture, excuse my terrible French, okay, but couture is constructed by hand. It's the highest quality everything. It has extreme attention to detail, made to measure for a specific client's fit, made one at a time. The Chambre syndicale de la haute couture determines which fashion houses are eligible to be true couture houses. And you know those houses, Dior, Chanel, Valentino. And in your brand name, if you use the word couture without actually being registered by the Chambre syndicale, you will look amateur. Juicy Couture got away with it because they were so clearly being jokey and cheeky with it. So what affects price? I do encourage you to watch my video, Why Are Clothes So Expensive?, which I'll link in the description box. But when it comes to actual design and construction of a garment, price is affected by, one, quality of materials. Silk is more expensive than polyester, linen is pricier than a cotton poly blend, etc. And I encourage you to shop for fabric in person or online so you can learn about fabric prices. And even if you're shopping on a retail level, you can get a good idea as to what's on the expensive end of things, what they look like and feel like, and what's on the cheaper end. Don't forget linings, closures, other trim, horn buttons versus plastic buttons, quality metal zippers, metal O-rings versus plastic ones. Think about interlining, both the material and the labor to add it, since most of it is the kind you place specifically and press on before sewing. Quantity of materials, of course. The more you use, the more expensive something is. Have you ever looked at a ruffle blouse and thought it looked a little wimpy, a little anemic, because the ruffles looked a little flat? You got to think about embellishments, embroideries, beading, appliques, extra labor steps, especially that requires a lot of actual people doing things as opposed to machines, like distressing denim. And where you manufacture will also be a factor in terms of labor costs, tariffs, and shipping. Let's explore designing similar items for various price points. And let's start with this lace blouse I drew in the beginning of this video. This style that I drew is a style you can make moderate or bridge depending on the quality of materials and construction. And you can make this blouse cheaper by using cheaper laces, using rayon, polyester, or nylon instead of silk. You can change some pieces using chiffon instead of lace, like if you were to make the back solid, or if you made the collar solid, or things like that. And you can simplify some of the details, like removing the bows on the cuffs, or you can simplify the sleeve, make it less full using less fabric, or you can make it shorter, which can be a cute look for a junior customer actually. And you can do an underlining construction instead of a loose lining, so you could save a lot of labor on special seamings for sheer fabrics. And underlining is when you take the lace and the lining fabric and you sew them together like it's one layer. So instead of going in there and doing a lot of French seaming, you can underline construction the whole thing. If you want to go trendier for a contemporary market, you could add some shoulder cutouts. The cold shoulder look was really popular for a while there. Or you can make it a crop top, which is really on trend now, and both those things will save fabric. For the more classics-based better market, you can opt for a more classic silhouette with a simple shirt sleeve with the double tuck in front of the house placket and a hip length straight hem as opposed to a slight shirt tail hem that I did for the original blouse design. And, older customers, they tend to prefer a little longer hem. They don't want their bellies showing even if they raise their arms. And they like a little more room around the hips because that's typically where a lot of women tend to gain weight. Not everyone, but it is fairly common. You can make this blouse more expensive by using the highest quality silk lace, silk lining, silk ribbons. Cut a wide swath of silk ribboning for the bow instead of a more narrow, cheaper grosgrain. Lining hanging loose, delicate French seams, rolled hems, or you can add a beautiful trim edging. There's so many to choose from. And at the couture level, you can give it a more avant-garde shape. You could add some embellishment on top of the lace, like hand sewing little tiny pearls perhaps. You can add a layer of organza inside the collar to give it a delicate but strong structure. You can create a color gradient with multiple layers of silk chiffon under the lace. When you show the lining, you do need to pick a better fabric, which is usually more expensive. Let's now design some trench coats. Trench coats are a classic style that are sold in every price category. With the lace blouses, I tried to make them look pretty similar to each other. With the trench coats, I'm going to focus more on the typical traits of each price category to explore how much variety we can create within the trench coat category. With mass market and moderate, the aim is to capture the trench and lose as many expensive details without losing the look. So what are the essentials of a trench? It's a plain gabardine fabric, can be wool, poly, a blend, double-breasted, buttoned, large collar, epaulets, which are those little tabs on the shoulder. Trenches were originally raincoats, so they have wrist straps and buckles to keep the water out when you raise your arm. Coat pockets have flaps, often with buttons. The storm flap on the back, essentially to have the rain fall down the coat and away from the body. Again, you can swap out all the materials for more or less expensive options depending on your price category. To make garments cheaper, a lot of companies start by stripping or minimizing hidden details and back details. Maybe remove inside pockets. Do you have a special lining? Maybe you only use the special lining in the body and use a cheaper lining for the sleeves. Do we need a buckle on the belt if most people tie it like a sash anyway? Do we need the buttons for the pocket flaps? Can we make the storm flap a little bit smaller and maybe not use any tabs or buttons? Maybe we make the whole thing a little bit shorter, a little bit narrower, and save fabric. And let's switch to a set-in sleeve, which takes less fabric too. Another way to manage fabric use is to create more seams. You can make a tighter marker and waste less fabric by having more pieces and smaller pieces. So split up the back, cut princess seams, cut a shoulder seam down the arm on your raglan if you don't switch to a set-in sleeve. Another design option is you can make these in different colors. Trench coats are considered investment pieces, as in people will spend a little out of their budget on a really nice trench coat that is a classic that will last and last. So most trenches are in the classic beige tone, but something cheap like budget, mass market, price point, people will pick a trendy color sometimes, like pink. Contemporary market likes things trendy, not always ahead of the trend like at designer level, but just before stuff gets too popular. Trendy twists to the trench coat can include making a sleeveless one. Those long vests and sleeveless coats were really popular for a long while. And capes were a big trend for a while too. You could do a trench cape, double-breasted, big collar, big lapel, epaulettes, that whole thing. And you can opt for a different fabric. You could do a classic trench coat shape, but choose a different fabric than your standard gabardine. I've seen some cool denim ones. Some people love the look of a satin trench for a more evening look, that sort of thing. Better market deals in classics for a more mature customer, so we can see a more straightforward classic here. Better level pricing is an investment level for a lot of folks. So I wouldn't give it a special lining or contrast panels or piping like I did on the bridge version, but keep it simple, make it really beautiful with quality materials and construction. At designer and luxury price points, which traditionally have been known to be the trendsetters, the brands that showcase new ideas, you can do all sorts of stuff. And you can do the whole thing in leather. You can make a killer, massive double drape lapel. Product development of more difficult shapes adds to the price of the garment. And you can experiment with silhouette at this price level. Here I'm doing a very slouchy, hip-slung trench with wide sleeves, a narrow skirt, and a little flare to the pocket flaps. At couture levels, why not just go full blast on a trench coat gone maxi corseted parade float in a 1990s Jean-Paul Gaultier meets an alternate ending to Casablanca? Why not? And that's it, folks. I hope this video helped you understand fashion industry price brackets and different markets, and I hope you learned a lot of different ways to work out designs to each price point's fullest potential. As homework, you should go to stores of different price points and get your face in those garments and really examine the construction, the quality, and the fiber content of those fabrics. I find the best way is to pick a garment and compare different versions. So examine a button-up collared shirt at Old Navy, and one at Theory, and one at different brands at Nordstrom, at Tory Burch, at Chanel, and really examine the quality differences within one category. Please do give this video a thumbs up if you learned something new today and want to learn more about designing in the industry. Share, subscribe, go visit zoehong.com so you can see what I'm up to. And if you're looking for my product recommendations, check the description box below for a link to my Amazon shop. I do make a little money, but the prices are the same for you. Go window shop, learn how different fabrics and garments look, feel, fit at different price points, and I'll see you in the next video.